Welcome back to Clearcut. Texas is leading a new charge to end the controversial DACA program. The Lone Star State is one of 7 states now suing the Trump administration. The lawsuit says President Obama did not have the authority to create the program. The Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals policy of the children of illegal immigrants from deportation. Let's go to our senior national correspondent, Michael Shore. Michael, DACA seems to be the program that just cannot be killed. The president has tried to shut it down, but now 7 Republican states are trying to force the courts to do it. Explain what's going on here.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's actually an interesting judicial quandary, because what you had last week is you had another circuit court saying, no, that DACA should go on. There is no proof that it is unconstitutional. So what does Texas do, and what do these other governors do? They turn around and say, all right, what we are going to do is get another injunction from a state court and a different circuit saying that it's unconstitutional. And that way, when it goes to the Supreme Court, as it will inevitably do, or as this reporter thinks it will, but I'm not alone, they will then have the ability, the administration, the Justice Department will have the ability to say, hey, look, this Texas court has ruled that DACA is unconstitutional, that what President Obama did was unconstitutional, so here you have legal standing. The last courts have said, we have no proof that it's legal or not, and because of that, they have had an injunction. What's really interesting, though, Michelle, is you could have 2 injunctions facing off against each other by the end of the summer. One injunction saying DACA must proceed, and a state injunction saying, no, it's unconstitutional.
Well, Michael, we're just about 6 months from the midterm election, so there's zero chance of Congress reviving the fight over DACA. What do you think?
Well, I mean, Congress won't, but Congress will have to on the campaign trail, because it is a hot-button issue that both sides want. Democrats are appealing to a big part of their base. We're saying, if you don't do something on DACA, we won't vote for you. So it's going to be fought not in the halls of Congress, but certainly in the districts. And it's going to be a very big issue, and one that's going to be very tough for Republicans in states like Arizona and Nevada, where there's some serious Senate races, Michelle.
And, Michael, while we're talking immigration, what's the update on the caravan of asylum seekers from Central America that are camping out in Tijuana?
Well, this is a long saga, and it has reached the port in San Ysidro here in California. And so far, 53, at last report, 53 have had asylum hearings, have been granted entry into the United States. Among them are people saying that they are persecuted in Central America. A mother who said that gang members came after she and her daughter because her boyfriend owed them money. You had a transgender woman in El Salvador who was persecuted for being transgender. So this is the typical type of an asylum that we would give here in the United States to people, and this is why the caravan is there, to show that there are asylum seekers and the process that they need to go through each time. And perhaps it needs to be better, but certainly for those seeking asylum who want the asylum for those reasons, for persecution, they're getting it thus far. 100 still remain outside the gates, though.
All right, Michael, appreciate the update. Michael Shore, thank you.
Thanks.
We're now joined by Democratic strategist David Morey and Tom Borelli, contributor at the Conservative Review, here in studio with us. Gentlemen, nice to have you with us.
Hi, Michelle.
David, DACA. So we have Texas and 6 other states now suing President Trump to make him rescind a policy that he actually wants to rescind, but the judges are saying that he can't. What's your reaction to this latest twist in the tale?
Well, I think DACA immigration is an example of the remarkable polarization. One party goes left, the other right. As Lincoln once said, a house divided against itself cannot stand. We have to get beyond that. Let's look at the facts. Remember the facts. The Trump administration itself sent the March 5 deadline back in September. That came and went. Congress was unable to get a 60-vote veto-proof number. There was a bipartisan bill heading through on DACA, and some of the more right-wing parts of the administration, Steve Miller in particular, blocked it. And now the courts are deciding it. And as Michael said, that can come and go. The Trump administration has had very bad luck in the courts on immigration issues. And in some ways, I think both the legislature and the administration are abrogating their job to courts. And that's not the way the system is supposed to work. So after this really bloody midterm, I think Michael's right, it's going to be a big campaign issue. No one thinks we're going to kick out 1 million DACA people. Even President Trump has said he wants a humane decision. He said he loves DACA people at one level. He said he wanted a humane decision. So we're going to have to find some kind of bipartisan ground that's missing now after the midterm election and solve immigration. Otherwise, we're stuck in the courts and we're trying to figure this out by states, and that's a mess.
Well, Tom, the lawsuit is not about whether DACA is good or bad or right or wrong. This lawsuit is about the legality of it, saying that President Obama exceeded his authority under law and under the Constitution to create DACA without the approval of Congress and taking other steps. So that's a valid legal argument. How do you see it playing out?
Well, absolutely. It is a valid legal argument. And even at times, President Obama actually understood the law and actually said it, that he didn't have the authority to do immigration alone. He needed Congress to pass the laws. The bottom line here, Michelle, is the fact that the Democrats love to talk about DACA, but they don't want to solve it. They love this political issue. If former President Obama had wanted to legalize all the illegal aliens in the country, he could have done it in his first term where he had nearly a supermajority, and he certainly could have found some Republicans joining on. But he decided not to do that. And then President Trump, I agree with most of his decisions and his policies, but he made an overly generous offer to the Democrats to legalize up to 1.8 million illegal aliens, and the Democrats didn't want it because they want to demagogue this issue.
So David, to Tom's point, are the Democrats using these so-called dreamers as a political pawn?
What did he do in the first term for Obama?
No, it's that kind of rhetoric that gets us in worse trouble than we are now. The Democrats are not fully to blame for the DACA issue. That's ridiculous. And saying 100%. That President Trump put something forward doesn't mean that it happened. There's all kinds of dispute as to what happened. Let's stop blaming Democrats or Republicans and figure out a solution. I agree with one point that my colleague on the other side of the wire said. This is not necessarily a legally strong ground to be on. It was always meant for Congress to solve this. Right. Remember, we would not have this problem if the Trump administration had not set the March 5th deadline. We got to solve this issue because the courts can't solve it. And blaming the Democrats for all the problems that come from immigration is ridiculous.
During his first term, did he address DACA or illegal aliens? When he had a supermajority.
He wanted to and he tried to. He didn't think he had the votes.
He had almost a supermajority.
Because you need more than 60 votes in Congress.
He had them.
You know,
Let's move on to another contentious immigration issue, and that's that caravan of migrants that are here from South America, and they're making their asylum pleas. It's been positioned, David, that the U.S. has to take them in. All the media coverage and support from activists says that if America wants to be considered a good country, it must have open borders. Now, granted, there are some people there with genuine asylum reasons and concerns, but there's also concern that if asylum is granted to all of them or most of them, that this sends the message that anyone who now shows up at the border can claim asylum, and that this will send a message to all of Central America to rush to our borders. Do you think that's a valid concern or not?
I do. I think that's a valid concern. I was a special advisor to the Department of Homeland Security. I think we can't have open borders, simply open borders, even though all the economic studies show immigrants add more to the economy than don't. You just talked to the last segment about Elon Musk, immigrant, Albert Einstein, immigrant. Look, we're a nation that welcomes immigrants, but they have to be vetted. They have to go through a legal process. There are 9 steps of vetting. And obviously, we can't let everyone in. The scale of this, by the way, is we let a tiny fraction of people in on political asylum compared to Germany and other European countries. Again, after the midterms, we better solve this with a bipartisan bill, or everybody's going to be blaming Democrats and Republicans for the next decade on your TV station.
Tom, very quick last word.
Well, I really think, I feel sorry for these people who have been caravanned up, but I think they're being used as political pawns. I think this is an affront to President Trump's idea of American first and secure borders, and to the Americans who support him. This is a PR stunt. I feel sorry for those people.
Well, it's definitely tough to strike that balance between offering asylum to those that need and being compassionate and protecting
I don't think all
our
human rights
borders.
Challenges are
Guys, we're going to have to leave it there. I do appreciate it. As always, David Morey, Tom Borelli, thank you both very, very much. All right, stick around.